Hello, this is Dr. Farley, and I just wanted to make this video to help you with using sources in your paper, MLA format, some grammar things, and other things like that. So I do hope this covers a lot of bases. I know there's going to be a lot of rules in here, but just a good checkpoint for you to start with, and you have all of the written sources that are available to you in the course shell. All right, let's go ahead and take a look. Why use sources? So the key thing you want to be thinking about while you're looking at your quotes and things like that is expertise. So you want to add expertise to your argument. And also you want to make sure that you're using your quotes to support your argument rather than having your sources make your points for you. So you are going to be sort of introducing a concept, whatever else, and then using that source and that quote to support something that you've already stated. Things you don't want to include: opinions, in other words, sort of unsubstantiated claims. You want to be providing evidence for your own claims rather than just throwing out the claims of others. General information is information you can assume everyone already knows anyway. There's a few different ways to use your sources. Summarizing is taking a large amount of information and explaining the major concepts within it. So it could be a book, an article, a documentary, something like that, which is sort of a longer piece. Maybe it's a sociological study or something like that, and you're giving us the main conclusions of that study. Paraphrasing is taking a smaller chunk of information and putting it into your own words. There's a variety of reasons to do this, including maybe you have an excellent quote, but you feel like there's some terminology in there that might be difficult for your reader to understand. Maybe it's medical terminology or technological, something that you're familiar with that you're not sure will translate to your reader. So you can paraphrase that to make sure that they understand precisely what the author is talking about. By far the best way is to quote your source, and that is because when you're paraphrasing or summarizing, we have to really trust that you're getting the message correct from the original source, because obviously you're putting it into your own words. When we see the quote itself, we can see exactly what the author has said, and so we can come to our own conclusions about that as well. Whatever you do, make sure that you're introducing your source, telling us who that is, and we'll come to that in a second. Incorporating it into your argument, and you're always citing. One of the things that or two of the things, I suppose, that students very, very rarely do when they're paraphrasing or summarizing is, one, introducing that information. And if they do, or sometimes if they don't introduce it, they throw a citation at the end. But when we're reading something and then all of a sudden we just see a citation afterwards, we have no idea how much information was from that source. We don't know information about that source at all. And so you want to be doing all of these things no matter what you're doing: summarizing, paraphrasing, or quoting. In-text citation is going to be either the author's last name or in a page number if there's one. If not, then you're going to be using the article title, the first word of the article title. So you'll see in this first quote here, the citation here is Smith and then 27. You'll notice there's no PG for page or P or PP or anything else like that. There's just the number. So last name and number. If there is no page number, then it would just be Smith in parentheses. The second one here with second example with history in quotations, this would be, say, a paraphrase of something, an article that begins with the word history. If you have already quoted an author and you're using them again, and you have their name, as in the third example, as Smith stated, and then you have a quote there, since the name is in the introduction here, you do not have to put it in the citation at the end as well, because I already know who this quote is from. So if there's no page number, this is sufficient in example 3. If you are quoting a source that does not have an author and you have to use the article title, you should just use the first word or two of that title as a reference point for your reader. So if, for instance, in the first example, if the article title is "Authorities Seek a Motive in the Boulder Mass Shooting," the only word that you have to use in your citation is authorities. Since your works cited page will be alphabetized, I'm going to go down to A, and I should see the first word in your works cited page entry will be authorities. And so I will know that that is the correct source. Obviously, if the first word is the or a or something like that, you are going to include the words that come after. Few tips here. This is very, very important. This is something that students very much struggle with when they are not used to using outside sources. Remember that you are building the expertise of your paper, so we need to know who your author is. And so what you want to do is tell us quite briefly who they are, what they're, in other words, how have they gained their expertise? So let's look at the first example. John Smith, professor of film studies at Harvard University, found that the Spider-Man films played it safe, and then you have your quote there, page number at the end. Same quote, same person, but here what many students have been taught is to use the article title to introduce your quote, and we'll see the problems when we read that. John Smith, author of Is Spider-Man the Next Great Comic Book Franchise, stated that, and here you have your quote and page number. We have simply just letting us know what the article title is. We don't know who he is. John Smith could be, publishing this article in his, high school newspaper, for all we know. So the article title doesn't really give us any information that we can really use about the person, John Smith, and we need to know who he is to understand what he is saying. The same exact quote coming from two different people or two different organizations could mean something vastly different. And so a quote is not just information in and of itself. It requires context, and that's why we have to know who your source is. If you do not explain your source, that leaves us in a serious deficit. So an absolutely essential thing to do while you're quoting. And paraphrasing and summarizing. If there is no author listed, which is oftentimes in websites and things like that, you are going to use the publication name to introduce your source. Remember, again, as I point out here, use the organization's name, the publication's name, not the website title, which is a little bit ungainly to put in your paper. So you'll see the example there according to the New York Times rather than NewYorkTimes.com. I think it's NYT.com anyway, I don't know. Introduce a publication if they are not widely known and are not scholarly. So you can easily assume that people have heard of the New York Times, so that does not need to be identified further. You'll see in the bottom example, according to Edmunds, an automobile review site. So you may not be able to reasonably assume that everyone knows what Edmunds is, and so just a few words about it gives us the context we need to understand what that publication is all about. You only need to introduce an author or a publication once in your paper. Afterwards, you just need to refer to the last name here. So say you had that storyline above, John Smith, professor of film studies at Harvard University. The next time you use this Smith quote, you don't have to explain who he is again. you're just going to say, as Smith noted. You're going to have your quote page number there. And it's sort of upon the reader, if they forget who this Smith source was, they're going to look it up themselves. Typically that's not the case. They'll remember, but again, that's the responsibility is the readers at that stage. If you are quoting someone who is not the author, you should use the phrase quoted in. So in this case, I'll read the example. The director Steven Spielberg was unsure about how to incorporate some of the more graphic elements. Sometimes we have to tread a fine line with what we can show to ensure we get the proper rating for the film. So you'll see the entire quote there is from Steven Spielberg, but he's not the person writing the actual article that it's appearing in. Someone obviously interviewed him. And so you want to put that author's name in the end in the citation using the phrase there, quoted in, QTD period in Smith. Just a couple of wise words here to conclude here. Don't start a paragraph with a quote. That's going to be very important. Again, we need a point of reference for your information, and you should be using your quotes and your sources to support the things that you're saying. And also remember that you should not use a quote without discussing it further. That gives some context to the quote. It explains something that's maybe difficult. Maybe there's some terminology in there that needs explanation. There's a variety of things you can do to really incorporate that into your argument, but it shouldn't sort of be viewed as something as an afterthought in the paragraph, or something that doesn't quite fit in the line of logic for that particular paragraph. So make sure it's incorporated well, it fits in with your argument. As I said, it should be supporting a point that you're making, and then you can build on that, whatever that quote is doing, to further add to your argument. All right, I hope this video has been helpful to you, to give you a variety of ways in which you can incorporate your sources into your paper. And please let me know if you have any questions.